Welcome to Infinite Universe with interesting episode. Melissa Gilbert went through many tough and painful experiences before she ever found success. She learned very early in life that sometimes pain and disappointment have to happen before better things come along. When she starred in the show Little House on the Prairie, there were times when she felt deeply uncomfortable with the script, and she even asked Michael Landon, the show's creator, to change some scenes. But America loved the romance between the characters, and Melissa was too young and too pressured to say no. She had to go along with it, even when it hurt. At just 15 years old, she had never kissed anyone before, yet she was asked to act in romantic scenes with Dean Butler, who was 23. Dean himself knew it didn't feel right, but the scenes were still filmed while around 100 crew members were watching. Melissa's mother even stood off camera and cried quietly as she saw her daughter in such an uncomfortable moment. Fans were angry and even wrote letters to complain. Now, many years later, both Dean and Melissa are finally speaking the truth. Their on-screen romance wasn't as sweet and innocent as it appeared on television. It was actually much darker and more troubling than most people ever imagined. Melissa's life started with pain even before she was given a name. She was born on May 8, 1964, in Los Angeles. Her biological parents were Kathy Wood and David Darlington. They were engaged and each had 3 children from previous marriages, so when Melissa was born, she became their 7th child. Just one day after her birth, they gave her up for adoption because they believed they couldn't afford to raise another child. Melissa never spent a single night with them. Instead, she was adopted right away by actor and comedian Paul Gilbert and his wife Barbara Crane, who was a dancer and actress. That early separation left a lasting scar on Melissa's heart. Years later, in her memoir titled Prairie, she wrote that a large part of her life felt like it was built on an illusion. Paul Gilbert wasn't just a father to her, he was her entire world. He gave her love, safety, and a place to belong. But that world fell apart on February 13, 1976, when Melissa was just 11 years old. That was the day she was told her father had died of a stroke. It made sense to her at the time, since she knew he had suffered from a stroke before. But many years later, she learned the truth, and it was far more painful. Her father had actually taken his own life. For decades, no one told her what really happened. Paul had been a World War II fighter pilot and lived with terrible, constant pain from the injuries he got during the war. He was being cared for by the Veterans Administration, but even they couldn't help him deal with the emotional and physical pain. When Melissa found out the truth at the age of 44, it completely crushed her. She told Oprah Winfrey in an interview that she couldn't function for weeks afterward. She ended up hiring a private investigator to dig into the details because she needed answers. She wanted to understand why the man who had rescued her from being unwanted was suddenly gone, and why nobody told her the truth. Even though Melissa was adopted, entertainment was already in her family. Her adoptive mother Barbara was the daughter of Harry Crane, a famous writer who helped create The Honeymooners and came up with the idea of celebrity roasts for the Dean Martin show. He had also written for the Oscars, the Emmys, and the Golden Globes. He was a major figure in early television and had a big influence on the family. Barbara also had her own career in the entertainment world. Because of that, Melissa grew up surrounded by scripts, cameras, red carpets, and the fast-paced world of Hollywood. It wasn't something far away or mysterious. It was just part of her everyday life. Melissa wasn't the only child in the family to enter show business. In 1967, Paul and Barbara adopted another child, Jonathan Gilbert. Then in 1975, Barbara had a daughter named Sarah with her new husband, Harold Abeles. All 3 children, Melissa, Jonathan, and Sarah, ended up becoming television stars. But Melissa stood out early. Before she was even 5 years old, she was already acting in commercials. One of her most famous ads came in 1977, when she appeared in a commercial for Alpo dog food alongside Lorne Greene. Their chemistry was natural and charming. Melissa talked proudly about her dog Fluffy winning a blue ribbon, and viewers loved her. When she was just 9 years old, Melissa went to a casting call with more than 500 other girls, all hoping to be chosen for a new television pilot. It was early 1973, and NBC was looking for a girl to play Laura Ingalls in Little House on the Prairie. Melissa didn't know it then, but this role would change her entire life. When she did her screen test with Michael Landon, something clicked. He didn't just see her as an actress, he saw her as the perfect daughter for his character. He later said that there was magic in her performance. She wasn't pretending. She simply was Laura. That screen test took place at the Burbank studios, and from that moment, Melissa's path was set. The funny part is that Melissa didn't even know who Michael Landon was. She had never watched Bonanza, the show that had made him famous for 14 years. Because of that, she wasn't nervous during the audition. She didn't try to flatter him or act starstruck. She just focused on the scene, and that honesty and natural approach was exactly what Landon wanted. She didn't treat him like a celebrity, she treated him like a person, like a father. That genuine connection became the emotional heart of the show for the next 9 years. Melissa found out she got the role in an unusual way. One day at school, a girl named Leslie Landon came up to her with a big smile. Leslie was Michael Landon's real daughter, and she said, "My dad picked you." There was no official call from the studio, just a simple, sweet hallway conversation between two young girls. Years later, those same two girls would act together on the show, with Leslie playing schoolteacher Miss Plum in the final seasons. Melissa filmed the pilot episode in the summer of 1973, in the hills of California. It aired the following March and was an instant success, with over 17 million viewers. Even with that popularity, Melissa still had to wait nearly a year to find out if the show would become a full series. That kind of waiting feels like forever when you're a kid. But in June 1974, filming began again, and Little House on the Prairie officially became a regular show. It would go on to run for 9 full seasons, ending in 1983. During those years, viewers watched Melissa grow up from age 10 to 19. No other child in television history had ever been on screen so consistently for so long. One powerful moment happened during her final audition. She had to act out a heartbreaking scene where Laura says goodbye to her dog. Her emotions were raw and real. She cried during the scene, and by the end of it, even Michael Landon had tears in his eyes. It was a moment that proved she wasn't just reading lines, she was feeling them deeply. Melissa didn't just grow up on the show, she also took on other important acting roles. In 1979, she played Helen Keller in The Miracle Worker at just 15 years old. The role was emotionally intense and earned her an Emmy nomination. A year later, she played Anne Frank, another difficult and meaningful part, and received another Emmy nomination. These roles showed that Melissa wasn't just a child star, she was a serious actress with talent and depth. But the most difficult part of Melissa's journey came during her teenage years on Little House. In season 6, actor Dean Butler joined the cast as Almanzo Wilder, the love interest of Laura Ingalls. Dean was 23 years old. Melissa was only 15. The 8-year age gap caused discomfort and even outrage. At the time, television was supposed to be family-friendly, and this casting choice didn't sit well with many people, including Melissa herself. She was still a teenager in high school, while Dean was already an adult. Yet they were asked to act out romantic scenes, including emotional moments and kisses. Melissa was heartbroken when she first found out Dean had been cast. She had hoped to work alongside someone her own age, someone who understood what it was like to be a teenager. Instead, she was told she'd be acting opposite a grown man, someone with facial stubble, someone she'd be expected to kiss on camera. She felt scared, angry, and sick to her stomach. The episode titled Sweet 16 featured Laura getting her first kiss. It was also Melissa's first kiss in real life. She had never dated anyone or even held hands with a boy before. And now she was being kissed in front of cameras, bright lights, and almost 100 crew members. Dean Butler admitted later that he felt very nervous. He said Melissa was just a little girl, and he knew that if the same casting happened today, it wouldn't be allowed. Melissa's mother Barbara stood off camera and cried when the kiss happened. It wasn't a happy moment for her, it was painful. She didn't want her daughter to have that experience in front of the world. Dean later said that Barbara never liked him, and when the kiss finally happened, her sadness turned into heartbreak. Melissa, meanwhile, tried to avoid the scenes. She begged Michael Landon to change them. "Can't it just be a hug?" she asked. But the scripts kept coming, and she had to go along with it. Some viewers loved the romance. Others were horrified. A mother wrote to a newspaper and said the casting director should be punished for pairing a teenage girl with an adult man. Dean received letters from fans who said the scenes made them feel uncomfortable. Even television critics warned that the role would be the most difficult of the season because of the disturbing reality behind it. Despite the backlash, the Sweet 16 episode was a ratings hit and even received an award years later for being one of the most memorable kisses in TV history. But the cost was high. Melissa was forced into adult situations before she was ready. Her childhood was shaped by scripts she didn't write, and her private emotions were exposed to millions. Dean Butler later admitted that it could never happen in today's world, and thankfully, times have changed. Melissa's personal life also suffered deeply. While everyone saw her smiling on TV, she was struggling in private. By her teenage years, she began drinking. As she got older, it turned into a serious addiction. By adulthood, she was drinking 2 full bottles of wine every night. She once passed out in her dog's bed while entertaining a guest. That was the moment she realized something was very wrong. But it wasn't just alcohol, she was also using cocaine. The fame had left her feeling alone, and the pressure never went away. Drugs and alcohol numbed the pain for a while, but they also damaged everything in her life. Her relationships were broken. Her parenting suffered. One day, her own son begged her to stop drinking. That moment hit her harder than anything else ever had. The next day, she joined Alcoholics Anonymous. The 12-step program saved her life. In meetings, she heard others share their painful stories, and she finally felt less alone. She opened up about everything in her memoir Prairie Tale, talking honestly about her addictions, broken relationships, and how being a child star had scarred her. But even later in life, more trauma followed. In the early 1990s, Melissa auditioned for a role in Oliver Stone's movie The Doors. What happened during that audition haunted her for years. Stone had apparently been angry at her for criticizing him in the past. He handed her a fake scene that wasn't part of the real script. In it, she had to get on her hands and knees and say, "Do me, baby." She felt humiliated and started to cry. Stone looked at her coldly and said, "Good. That will make it better." It was a cruel moment that added to the emotional wounds she had carried for decades. Through all the pain, Melissa Gilbert survived. She eventually found peace, love, and healing. But her story is a powerful reminder of how fame can hurt as much as it helps, and how behind the perfect TV image, real lives can be filled with sorrow, pressure, and strength. The casting director had stepped out, leaving Melissa Gilbert alone with Stone and another actor. What followed still haunts her. She ran out of the room in tears. To this day, she believes the entire situation was designed as punishment. Stone denied it later, but Gilbert never wavered in her version of the event. Not long after, she met Beau Brinkman. On the surface, it seemed like a Hollywood love story. They were engaged only 6 weeks after meeting, but things quickly turned dark. Beau was emotionally abusive, an alcoholic, and unfaithful. Their 6-year marriage became a slow, painful collapse. His cheating wasn't hidden, it was bold and unapologetic. One of the most painful betrayals came when he allegedly slept with Shannon Doherty, Melissa's former co-star from Little House on the Prairie. Shannon had once admired her like a big sister, but now she had contributed to Melissa's heartbreak. At the time, Shannon was just 19 and Brinkman was in his 40s. Years later, when asked what she would say to Shannon if she ever saw her again, Melissa didn't hesitate. She said she wouldn't say anything, she would just punch her in the nose. But that betrayal wasn't even the worst. Just 2 months after Melissa had a C-section to give birth to their son, Dakota, she was woken in the middle of the night by his cries. She went downstairs to warm a bottle. What she found shattered her. Beau was on the couch having sex with another woman. The dim light from the TV flickered over the room. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. But she wasn't. When she stood frozen in shock, Beau looked up and said, "What are you looking at?" There was no shame, no apology, only arrogance. Melissa didn't scream or cry. She walked to the fridge, got the milk, warmed it, and went back upstairs to feed her son while her husband continued cheating downstairs. The woman on the couch turned out to be a sex worker Beau had found through a late-night program called The Robin Bird Show. When Melissa later confronted him, he blamed her. He told her it was her fault for not being sexually available after surgery. But that wasn't the end of the horror. After the woman left, Beau came upstairs angry. He yelled at Melissa, asking, "What's your problem?" When she tried to stay calm for their baby's sake, he still pushed her into a fight. When she told him she couldn't believe he brought a hooker into their home, he simply replied, "Yeah, what's your problem?" He kept lashing out, calling her selfish and blaming her for his failing career. His emotional abuse continued. When Melissa told her mother she was pregnant before telling him, because he was unreachable, he punished her with 3 days of silence. He even missed their baby shower because he went on a drinking binge. Her life was not just a series of events but a series of emotional battles. Still, she pushed forward. After her failed marriages and years of surviving emotional storms, Melissa found something rare and real at age 48, true love. His name was Timothy Busfield. They had known each other for over 20 years through industry events and sets, but had never been more than acquaintances. That changed during the holidays in late 2012. By April 24, 2013, they were married in a quiet, romantic ceremony at San Isidro Ranch in Santa Barbara. She wore a bold red strapless gown by Morgan Le Fay, choosing confidence over tradition. Melissa had 2 sons, and Timothy had 3 children. They weren't starting over, they were blending lives. But for the first time, Melissa felt the love was equal. Timothy believed in her and pushed her forward. In 2018, they moved to upstate New York, far from the chaos of Hollywood. They now work together side by side. She says her favorite thing in the world is working with him. Before finding this peace, Melissa dove into bigger challenges. In 2000, she was elected to the Screen Actors Guild Board of Directors. Just a year later, she shocked the industry by becoming the 3rd woman ever elected as SAG president. Her opponent was Valerie Harper. Out of over 27,000 votes, Melissa won with 45.3% to Valerie's 39.4%. Many were surprised. The union had been in turmoil under former President William Daniels, who led the longest strike in Hollywood history against advertisers. Melissa promised change, and she delivered. In 2002, she won re-election with more than 21,000 votes. Ballot returns reached a record 41.4%. During her presidency from 2001 to 2005, she met with senators, mayors, and governors, becoming one of the most powerful labor leaders in the country. In December 2001, she also became vice president of the AFL-CIO. From a child star to a labor leader, Melissa kept evolving. Then in 2015, she took another surprising leap. At age 51, she announced she was running for Congress not in California or New York, but in Michigan's 8th District. She had moved there only 2 years earlier. Her opponent's team immediately attacked, calling her a tax cheat. It was revealed that she owed nearly $500,000 in unpaid taxes. Melissa admitted it, citing a combination of career setbacks, the recession, and divorce. She was on a payment plan and still moved forward with her campaign. But the journey was cut short. On May 24, 2016, she suddenly withdrew from the race. The reason wasn't political but physical. In 2012, during her time on Dancing with the Stars, she had suffered a concussion and whiplash. Later, a balcony collapse at her home in Studio City worsened her injuries. Doctors told her she needed surgery for 2 herniated discs. Her right hand had gone numb. She felt sharp pain in her arm and constant discomfort in her neck. Without another Democrat on the ballot, her withdrawal gave an easy win to the Republican opponent. The race was over, but Melissa's advocacy didn't end. In 2002, she joined a White House event hosted by First Lady Laura Bush to promote literacy. Behind the scenes, she met with staff to talk about runaway production and copyright problems hurting American film workers. She chaired important SAG committees focused on diversity, young performers, and affirmative action. She supported Planned Parenthood and even marched in Walk for Choice events. Melissa and her brother were both adopted, so her pro-choice stance was deeply personal, not just political. In 2014, before she ran for Congress, she campaigned for Michigan gubernatorial candidate Mark Schauer. Her loyalty to democratic causes was real. But long before politics, one of her most iconic public moments came in 1985 when she was just 21. She became the youngest person ever to receive a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. It still sits at 6429 Hollywood Boulevard, honoring a life already filled with accomplishments. By that time, she had already produced The Miracle Worker, which won an Emmy in 1979. She had acted in more than 30 commercials by age 2 and worked with legends like Henry Fonda. In 1987, 2 years after getting her star, she made her off-Broadway debut in A Shayna Maidel and won the Outer Critics Circle Award for Best Debuting Actress. At age 50, in January 2015, she made a big personal decision. She had her breast implants removed. It was about more than health. It was rebellion. For years, Hollywood had told her how to look. She got implants after a divorce, hoping to feel more confident while dating. The surgery went fine, but over time she became uncomfortable. She didn't like how they looked or felt. She even joked that a Zumba class could give her 2 black eyes. But beneath the humor, there was serious thought. She started imagining herself at 80 years old, needing hip surgery and also needing to replace expired implants. She realized the implants had a shelf life, and she didn't want to keep living by someone else's standards. So she removed them and reclaimed her body. In 2012, at 48, she joined Dancing with the Stars. The pressure to look young was intense. It was the peak of Botox, fillers, spray tans, hair extensions, and breast implants. Looking back, she said she didn't recognize herself. She compared her face to a cartoon character. Botox froze her expression. She kept trying to hold on to youth, even when she knew it was impossible. One day she saw a photo from an event and it hit her hard. That image, and the quiet support of her husband Timothy, pushed her to change. He loved her exactly as she was. Her honesty first came out in her 2009 memoir Prairie. It was raw and open. She talked about trauma, addiction, and hiding behind fame. Alcohol had been a social tool but turned into a way to numb pain. Then came cocaine. Her childhood stardom, constant attention, and loneliness had crushed her. The book shared painful stories, nights she couldn't remember, relationships she damaged, and sadness she tried to bury. But her children saved her. They asked her to stop drinking. That was the wake-up call. She got help. She joined 12-step programs and went to therapy. Slowly, she rebuilt herself. The book wasn't just a tell-all, it was proof of survival. She showed others that healing was possible. Later that same year, she returned to Little House in a powerful way. She played Ma in Little House on the Prairie, the musical. It opened in Minneapolis in August 2008 and was a smash hit. Tickets sold out. Then came a 28-city tour across the US and Canada. It lasted 34 weeks. She wasn't just starring in the show, she was the national spokesperson. The tour worked with Habitat for Humanity to build homes in every city and partnered with the Seeing Eye to support guide dog training. Her return wasn't about nostalgia. It was about reconnecting to values, honesty, strength, and family. These mirrored her own life journey. That same strength showed up on Dancing with the Stars. Though she finished 5th, her time on the show was unforgettable. Her partner Maxim Chmerkovskiy was intense and fiery. They had their clashes, but their chemistry made each performance electric. Every week felt uncertain, like a cliffhanger. She even danced through injury. In April 2012, a concussion nearly took her out. She rested for 1 day and came back. Her standout was a samba with both Chmerkovskiy brothers. One judge called it a Chmerkovskiy sandwich with Melissa in the middle. On her final night, her 48th birthday, she got her highest score. Still, she was eliminated. But she wasn't sad. She said she was amazed she made it that far. Then in 2024, Little House on the Prairie celebrated its 50th anniversary. The reunion event was massive. More than 18,000 fans attended. Melissa Gilbert and Dean Butler took the stage together, not as Laura and Almanzo, but as two friends who had grown up under the spotlight. They shared stories, laughter, and the love that never left them or their fans. Thanks for watching. Keep it and stay tuned. Like and subscribe our channel. Have a good day.